So Rabbi Mordechai here, just doing something a little bit different in the visual going. I just got a finished davening Shachrit, and so I decided just to go into the next class. So we're on the 14th principles of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. These principles, these precepts that we're learning about, we're on number 4 right now, but all of these, if you follow the class series, you'll see like that much of what we are discussing is the conversations that Rabbi Shimon had when he first came out of the cave with his son Rav Eliezer, and he's talking to Rabbi Pinchas, who's father-in-law, and they're just discussing like this new light that Rabbi Shimon brought into this world, and him and his son Rav Elazar brought into this world, and he's just giving like a micro bites to his father-in-law, because obviously he doesn't have the time to sit there and just give a full drasha for probably take like the next like 30 years to express what he could say to his father-in-law, but so anyway, so we're learning that. And so in the precept number 3 was really about this dynamic of understanding how God's light comes into this world, how God's light influences every day. And we in the Zohar brought the concept of the Shema, right? So Hashem says that there's a light, or Rabbi Shimon explains that there's a light that comes into this world, and this light is broken into 6 fragments, and these 6 fragments are constantly being brought into this world, and each of these different fragments is there to nourish different aspects of our spiritual limbs, are there to nourish all of the rest of the creation, the other nations, all the other creatures. Everything is nourished from these levels, these six expressions. And so Rabbi Shimon says, he teaches us how to understand it is through the Shema. The Shema has 6 letters. Shema Israel, Hashem Elohim Echad, right? So those 6 words represent like vessels that capture these different lights that are coming down into this world. And it allows you to bring them into your reality, right? It allows you to bring those lights into your reality, into your life. And then it says the next 6 letters, that Baruch Shem Kavod Mahut Olam Vayed, that that Hashem should be forever and ever and ever. Those 6 words actually form the now that I've captured those 6 lights through the Shema, now through the Baruch Shem Kavod Mahut Olam Vayed, I'm actually able to internalize these things. And so to express that idea, they bring the partial in Bereshit, that basically says that Vayomer Elohim yikavu hamayim mikat hashamayim ve'al hamakom echad. And then it says and God gathered all the waters into one place underneath the heavens. And then it says TORAH. Right, so he says the gathering part of the mind, right? Mind represents Torah, right? Mind represents light. He gathers that underneath the heavens, right? So that's in essence when we're praying, when we're davening, we're underneath the heavens. And so we say the Shema, we bring those lights that are coming down into this world, and we bring them into one place. Then it says TORAH, TORAH, Hayabasha. Right, so it says, and then appeared dry land, right? And so they're saying when you say the Baruch Shem Kavod Mahut Olam Vayed, that is expressed through this connection between the waters that were gathered, and then the revealment of the land meaning the manifestation of that light. And then as it goes further, it talks about the vegetation and the fruits and everything that came after it. So this is the process of bringing that light down. So now we are in the 4th precept, which is about this idea of now we understand how the light comes down, that we want to remove any form of separation in our consciousness, right? Any form of separation that makes us see what's happening in ourselves as being two different entities. The dynamic of understanding that the light is revealed, but that light that revealed isn't only Hashem. You know what I'm saying? Like someone can understand that they understand the creative system of how Hashem disseminates into this world, and they can see that dissemination, and then they say, oh, you know what? Light, I captured Hashem's light with the Shema, it just came down, like I connected to God. But that is the total MS, but along with that, everything around those six lights, the whole reality around it, the whole world is also Hashem. So that's what Rabbi Shimon Kunda says. And so the third lesson was about the greatness of God and the greatness and the awe of the light of Hashem coming into this world. And he says the fourth precept is to know that Hashem is Elohim. So what does he mean by it? Hashem is Elohim? So that's a big point. And so they bring a verse in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 39. And the verse says, let me find it. Yeah. So it says like this. It says, Vedata Hayom. Basically, in know this day, Ve hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu ha'elohim hashemayim mima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitachat, that word in Bereshit, right? It's interesting verse. The verse that we're talking about, that's in Bereshit, it says mitachat, right? It says I'm beneath the heavens, right? So the same word is in this verse, mitachat ein od, right? But as the verse says, it says, know this day and consider it in your heart that Hashem is Elohim. So he's bringing a apostle to prove it. So now, what does this mean, right? What does this mean, right? So he says, this is in Aramaic. He says, "Vehayinu raza kiti." He says, and this is the secret of the verse, right? He says, Yehi merod berekia hashemayim leha'ir al haaretz. Let there be luminary. So so right now the Zohar is going off of this word merot, right? Merot, which in essence is like luminaries, like things that are in the sky. Sorry, the whole thing, right? And so with that being said, so he says this word merot, that means firmaments. So this word merot, that means firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. That's what the verse is saying in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. So he's saying that the firmament in the heaven that brings light to the earth, right? So they're bringing those two ideas together, which means the tetragrammaton, Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? And Elohim, right? So that verse, this verse that they're bringing, the verse, the Yehi merot berekia hashemayim la'ir al ha'aretz. So he's saying these firmaments, right? These firmaments that are from the heavens bring light down to the earth. And so there, the Zohar is saying, is making this connection between the light and the vessel, right? And he's saying that these two things are synonymous, right? So he says, it says merot, and he says the merot itself is spelled without a vav, right? And which is malchut, right? And malchut is also known as the term Elohim. And it says, and we should also include within that term the heavens, and the heavens is known as the Aaron pin, right? So the whole thing that we're talking about now is a relationship between Malchut and Ze'er and Pin and Malchut. This is the relationship. And this relationship, they're saying that when we say Hashem, he says, when the Pasuk says that, on this day, consider in your heart that Hashem is Elohim, it's saying it like this. It's saying that Elohim means this physical, when it says Haya Basha, when it says the dry land appear, he said this earth, this physicality is known as Elohim, this Malchut, this physical. And he's saying that light that's coming down from the heavens, right? That light that's coming in is called the Ze'er and Pin, right? And he says, and they use, they're connected to black light and white light, all these different things that represent light and vessel, but they're not disconnected. So when we see the fact that we're bringing these lights down, when we see that we're bringing these lights down from the upper worlds into this world, we have to understand that it's not that we're bringing these lights into this world, we're revealing the unification that already exists, right? So people talk about the speed of light, right? There's no such thing as a speed of light. Light is just revealed. It's not like it's traveling from one place to another. It's just revealed. The light is already there, right? Your success is already there. The love that you desire in your life is already there. You have to reveal it. You have to remove the layers and the blockages and the veils that make you think that things are separate. That who you are today and your goals that you think are going to make you feel successful is illusionary. You're successful now, but you still have goals, right? You're still important, even though you don't have 100 million Facebook followers, right? Your soul and your body are connected. They're one. So this idea of separation, right? We talked about the idea of healthy fear, right? In the first precept. And this idea of knowing that Hashem is the thing, Hashem is the creator, Hashem is the sky, the moon, the trees, the walls, the tali, the tefillin, everything, right? Everything is Hashem, right? So that idea is being further understood through this idea of understanding the relationship between light and vessel, right? Because it's one thing to know it in a general sense, but it's another thing to understand it, right? As the Zohar goes further, it goes very much into this word merot, right? And the significance of this word and how this word was something that allows us to understand the concept of the serpent, right? The concept of the serpent is they said the concept of the primordial serpent who unites below but is separated above. This is caused by, and this is what made him do what he did to the world, right? So you have people like who per se may look religious and may act religious, but their minds are not in the Torah, right? Their minds are not in the Torah. So when the serpent went to Chava and presented himself or itself to Chava, it was connected to this idea of an entity that had a presentation and was unified or connected in its physical world, but in the upper worlds, they were totally disconnected, right? It's because what is below should be separate. We should be separate below. This is what the halakha does. And what is above should be united. This is our connection to Hashem. So the black light, Malchut, should be unified above with Ze'er and Pin into one unified whole. So everything that exists has to be unified, right? And it goes into this whole idea of why Hashem says that, he saw that it was good, he said good twice. This is the idea of the connection between the upper worlds and the lower worlds, right? The upper worlds and the lower worlds, there's this idea that, that Kito, that Hashem saw that it was good, right? And so this unification is what the Torah is teaching us, right? Through the letters, through the meanings, to the points, that these connections, that we have to be connected physically and mentally. We have to have in mind the upper worlds and the lower worlds. We have to have in mind the present reality and then the Olam Haba. everything is united. The actions that we do now will affect the future. On Rosh Hashanah, they say that when a person, even the dead are judged, right? And they say, how could a dead be judged? Because the things that you do in this earth that you leave behind you are either going to create shalom or it's going to create nezikin, right? Damages, right? It's going to go into either one of those worlds. And based off of what we leave behind us, that's what we're judged on Rosh Hashanah. So that action that I'm making now, that decision that I'm making now, that's going to have an effect on this earth, say through descendants and through, like if a person creates a company that just, hurts a lot of people. And after they die, that company is still, has this kind of like editorial experience in the marketplace. That person who created is still chayv in the next world. So it's that ability to see the difference, right? All right. So that's the idea. So the idea is this unification, right? It says, nevertheless, it says, sorry, I'm just like jumping around. It says, ve'im kol da, right? And so it says, he says, nevertheless, it's necessary to know that Elohim and Yud Vav are one without separation. Right? I'm reading it in the text. Yud Vav is Elohim. So when a person acknowledges that both are one and does not cause any separation between them, neither the other side will disappear from the world. So he's saying that through this space, so it says, each tarik lemina da de Elohim, right? Kula chad bela peroda, right? So it's saying like this idea of space and consciousness is what allows the darkness, the sun to come in, right? It's like in a marriage, right? When two people are unified in the marriage, Satan cannot enter. Satan cannot enter the home. Even the mezuzah, when a person comes and acknowledges the mezuzah and as they walk to the door, all negativity that could be by the doorway, that could have been following the person, that could be connected to the person, is removed. This is the power of the mezuzah. But you have to create kasher, you have to create unity with this mezuzah, and then through that connection to the mezuzah, then you're going to remove the darkness that's connected to. In the same way, when you make that connection with your family, with your husband, with your wife, with people in your community, and you come in this place and you remove the space between you guys, there's no Satan that can conquer. When the Jewish people were on Har Sinai, they said they were of one mind, one soul, one consciousness. It was the greatest form of human unity that ever was expressed in human history, was on Har Sinai. When a group of people had complete unconditional love for each other, complete connection to each other. And through that, they were able to bring down the greatest revelation in human history as a collective. So this unity and removing space is real. I tell you a story. It's a Baal Shem Tov story. And so the Baal Shem Tov tells a story. He tells a story about, like basically in essence, he's talking about the relationship between us and others, in that space that we have between others, right? So it's a story, and it says like, he uses an analogy. It's like, you walk up to a river and you see your reflection in that river, right? And that reflection in the river, the further away you are, the further that image of you or that shadow of you extends, right? Right. And so as you walk closer to the river, your shadow gets smaller and smaller, right? So you walk a step further, that the shadow that was way out in the middle of the river is now closer. You get closer, you walk even closer, that shadow becomes even smaller. And as you walk closer, it gets even smaller, all the way to the point you walk all the way up to the river and you look at it, just your face is the only shadow that you see, right? And so he says the same way that when a person say you walk out of your house and you have a neighbor, right? And walking out of your house and you have this neighbor, and neighbor sees you and you walk out and you're wearing your best clothes and you feel powerful and you're walking out. When your neighbor sees you, he also feels he has his best clothes and he also feels that he's powerful. And he also feels that, he has his defined space. He says, but if a person come in and says, hey, you know what? They may not reveal themselves as much, right? They may like hold back a little bit. They may have some modesty in their thing. So when they come out of that, their neighbor sees that, and their neighbor is modest too, right? At the same level. And as a person is more modest, a person is more humble, so their neighbor becomes more modest and more humble, to the point that the person becomes so modest and so humble, the neighbor feels totally connected to that person. And Baal Shem Tov was using that for us to understand the humility of Moshe Rabbeinu and how he was punning to Hashem. He was so close to Hashem because his heart was so open and he had so much love for Hashem, and he was imbued with this debate that we that's never existed and never will exist. He was punning to Hashem. So this idea of removing space from our lives or creating space is what this whole idea. So the Baal Shem Tov says, it says the same thing. Vehayinu raza keditiv vehavu lemerot. Right. So he said the secret behind the word, let there be a firmament let there be luminaries, merot. He said that the word merot is formed from two words, or and mavet. Or means light, and mavet means death. Because because the klipa follows the brain, and the brain is the light, right? So the other side is death. So they're saying that anytime the light force is revealed into this world, there's this aspect of klipa, right? So this aspect of klipa, they're referring to as death, right? So it's like, for example, like they said, the bris milah, right? When a person, there's so much light can come out of that male reproductive organ that there is an aspect of klipa that's connected to it, right? And that's the foreskin that has to be removed, right? And they said the same thing. They said when Abraham went out on his journey, his new journey after Lech Lecha, Lot was with him, and Lot is the word Lot is connected to the word Chet, right? So the idea is that the Lot was connected to this negativity, and this new light that was being revealed, which is Abraham, that aspect was there. So this is the same thing with the word merot. Merot is expressing this combination of light that's accompanied by darkness, right? An aspect of darkness. So he says, he says the word merot spelled with a vav, the spelling forming the word or are kept together, while forming the word, while the letters forming the word mavet are separated from one another. So you hear this? So he's saying that because of the power of words and the power of combinations, the word merot symbolizes, because when the word merot spelled with a vav, that letter creates like a mochitza, right? It creates a separation between or and the word mavet, right? And so the light is gone from there and separated and the light is gone from there. The separate letters of death join together at one. So Ravash brings his commentary. I'm saying in English. He says this means that if we remove the letters of or from within the word merot, the letters will join together, and the word will appear as mavet, right? So this is where it gets like really interesting, and I think this is the like very, very interesting point. So he's saying like this. So he says, Me'ilein at van shari at chava, right? Chava. So he's saying Chava, Eve, she meddled with these letters and brought evil to the world. it's written, it says when the woman saw when the woman saw that it was good, the word vatir, he said she turned. It's in the Bereshit chapter 3, verse 6. He says she turned the letters of merod backwards. So she turned these letters backwards. In this Ravasa, he says that is, she removed the letters of vater from there, leaving only the letters of only leaving the letters mem and vav, and went. So he's saying that she changed, she took this combination, if you can imagine, of light, and she rearranged it in essence. And then she rearranged it in such a way that the mem and vav were there, and the strength of her moving it allowed these letters to have a certain koach where they remove the tav, and thus creating the word mavet. So she removed letters from the tar and she made the word mavet, which is death. And this is how she brought death to the world, as the Torah tells us, right? Right? And so it says, Amar Rav Eliezer Hava Oref Na Mim Samek Ishtaracha Yechida'a. So he's saying Vater in Bereshit. He says Rav, he's going off the word Vater. He says Rav Eliezer said, Father, right? So they're still in this conversation, right? They're in this father, there's Rav Shimon, this Rav Elazar, his son, and Rav Pinchas, right? And so they're having these conversations. So just in the same way, when we were talking about the full and complete love in the second precept, and Rav Eliezer speaks up, and his father gives him permission. Over here is similar. Rav Eliezer said, Father, I have learned that after Eve removed the letters of Vater from the word merot, not the letters mem and vav remain, but only mem remained, because vav, which is always the letter of life, turned into mavet. So they're getting very technical. And if you know the aleph bet, the system of learning of the aleph bet, this would make a lot of sense to you, because he's saying that this vav represents a certain energy, a certain idea, and which is always life, right? The vav is always, when you see the yud k vav k, that vav represents the Aaron pins. The Aaron pin is connected to the male reproductive organ, and that aspect is connected to life. So he's saying, he said it wasn't that she left the mem and the vav, as Rabbi Shimon was saying. He says no, rather she took out the vav as well, and it was just she left the mem, and then that's how it turned into met. He said because the vav is always the letter of life, turned into mavet. No, I'm just looking. I'm just making sure I'm on the right page. I mean, I'm like in terms of um, yep. So we're right. So we're good. You just have to go over it, make sure you're saying this is very complicated stuff. The point is saying that this is what's going on. So now he's bringing us into this lesson of understanding this, right? He said because the vav is this, right? So he says when it took and left with the letter tav, as it's written, she took. Vayicha, and gave Benatan. So it's going into some very technical things. But the point is like this. This idea that we're giving and we're talking about in this fourth lesson is the removal of separation of perception. Everything that you're doing is connected to the future, is in many ways connected to the past. Everything that you see is connected. The life force of the creator and the physical manifestation. The lights and the manifestation of this lights, the world around the lights. Everything is connected. And so first we learned about the greatness of Hashem in lesson 3, and now we're learning about the unity of Hashem. And we understand that the light and the vessel are totally one. And that oneness, in the consciousness of that oneness, the consciousness of wanting to remove space from relationship with Hashem. And that's why it's so important to have the correct type of fear, right? Because the wrong type of fear creates space, which leads to darkness, right? It leads to the capital punishments. We're living in that frame of the capital punishments, right? There's people who are suffering, righteous people who are suffering every day. And a lot of it is because they're not really righteous as the way Rabbi Shimon is saying. Their spirituality is full of vanity, is very self-absorbed, and from there's no true kesher with Hashem. So over here, we're saying that going forward, that the consciousness we could take from this 4th lesson from Rabbi Shimon is that the person that I want to be and the person I am are the same person. The challenge is for me to remove that space, to remove that shame, to remove that sense of embarrassment, and be able to stand in front of the light force of Hashem and feel complete. You're great now. The world is perfect now. It's our job to remove the layers, not allowing us to see it. Baruch Adonai Le'olam Amen.